So I just went out for dinner at this amazing restaurant called Cafe Luna. And I went by myself. I sat at the bar. I ordered a margarita and had some ceviche. And I met this older gentleman who's probably the same age as my dad. And I said, "Are you from New York?" Because I could hear his accent. And he said, "Yes, I'm from Long Island." And we got to talking, and I asked him, how did you end up here in California? And he said, "Well, when I was 19, I hitchhiked out here. I made it all the way to Iowa, and then I jumped on somebody's, truck, and I ended up in Berkeley, California." And then he told me the story about how he did like LSD and he smoked marijuana and he ended up in San Diego, and it was this whole long story. And we had this really fun conversation about how if it was reverse, you were somebody going from California to Iowa, and I'm just using Iowa as an example, but if you showed up in Des Moines, Iowa, and told people that you hitchhiked there and you did LSD and you smoked marijuana, and then you went on to like meet your wife and have 4 kids and have this very successful career, that story might be unfamiliar. But here in California, those dreaming kids, that story is like a dime a dozen. I then went on to tell him that I knew at a very young age that I was different from everybody that I was living around. My family, my friends, my Cabbage Patch dolls were all different than everybody else's. And I had dreams of like being in the Air Force and flying an F-14. And, I just always knew that I was different. And part of the reason why is because MTV came out when I was a kid. And, my plan was to move to California for 2 years and then move to New York for 2 years and then move back home. I told him I moved here with $1,000. My dad asked me, like, "What are you going to do when you get there and your car breaks down?" And I was like, "I'm going to go to a gas station." Like, "What do you mean?" And yeah, like, the fun thing about California is that you meet people from everywhere. And a lot of people had this dream of moving here with no plan. Okay, it was a different time before the internet. But it's very often you can meet somebody in California that literally moved here with the clothes on their back. And the stories are always fascinating because people end up rising up, because the community here in California just kind of takes you in and helps you get on your feet and go about your way. And I don't know, it was just like a fun conversation because it was reminding me of like being young and having no bills and having no responsibilities, and calling my dad up and being like, "Hey, just want to let you know that I'm moving to LA on August 11th and I have $1,000. And then my dad was like, "Yeah, well, good luck. Don't call me for a ride home." Anyways, those stories make me chuckle every single time because there's just so many people. I tell my daughter this all the time. There's so many people across the world that are California dreaming, and we're so lucky to live here. Although it hasn't been easy always, we're just so lucky to be here. So if you have a fun California dream moving story, I would love to hear it in the comment section because, man, there's a lot of good stories out there.